positive momentum loop, right? Once you start that wheel spinning, it spins faster and faster, you know. Before you know it, it's an unstoppable force.
The act of renouncing to something, which is basically an act of self-control, isn't it?
If you were going to try and influence someone to fast, it's a tough sell. But the feeling of the satisfaction you get when you don't give in to your craving, it's hard to sell that over the taste of eating the sweets that you're about to eat and you're resisting, you know?
Yep. We're recording.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Josh.
Oh!
And this is James. And this is Sal. And we be the Three-Headed Hydra. And today we're talking about fasting. Some days you eat, some days you don't. The days you don't are called fasting.
Hear me now.
James, what do you like about fasting?
Oh, do I have 1 minute? So we thought we'd do the 1 minute each to lay out some ideas first, and then we'll go from there. So, fasting. So I remember the first time I tried fasting, like many of the best ideas in my life, they came from Joshua William Dennison. And he said, mate, if you don't eat for a day, you'll be fine. I said, no, you're crazy. So I thought, I tried it once. And I was moving house in Latvia. So, you know, my mind was occupied, but I wasn't really physically exerting myself. And it was an absolute hell. I got to the evening, I remember I cut up some broccoli for the next day and I nibbled a few bits on the end. So I couldn't do it anymore. But now I fast regularly. And I actually do intermittent fasting every day, which means that I fast for 16 hours and I eat all of my food in an 8-hour period. So, for example, between noon and 8 p.m. or 11 and 7. And every now and then I do a longer fast. In the quarantine, I did a fast for 5 days, 5.5 days. And I learned a lot from that. It was a great experience, actually. So I'm about to finish my minute, but we'll go into it more later on. 1 minute.
Salvatore, do you have any experience with fasting?
Yeah, well, my first contact with fasting, it was actually not after a tip from you, but the closest I ever got to fasting when I grew up was actually because of my family, because since I was raised with Catholic values, or at least in theory, because when you practice your faith, you're supposed to fast on Good Friday or on Ash Wednesday or both, I don't know. But our way of fasting was a light version. So basically we were not allowed to eat meat on those particular days. So you can make of that whatever you want. And I also remember that at the time I had friends, still have them, they are Muslims, and they were talking about their fasting and eating windows during Ramadan. I think that when the sun goes down, they can start eating, and when it comes up, they have to stop.
They eat windows?
Like they don't eat windows themselves, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They have a time frame to eat. So yeah, I was connected fasting to some religious context for some reason.
Yeah, that's quite common. Sorry.
Yeah, but then thanks to podcasts like Joe Rogan, 20 years later, I got into fasting, and what I basically do now is I typically fast 16 hours, like yourself.
Beep. That's your minute.
Snap. To be continued. Very soon.
Those are the rules. Those are the rules.
Gotta follow the rules. We made them.
Yeah.
Well, I probably first came across fasting from off the back of a TED talk, which is probably the one I sent to you, James. And that was, I've seen 2 different TED talks, and one of them was about a fast with lemon juice. And I can't remember what else goes into it, but he does it for a week. He does it for a long time. And another one was about fasting, as in literally not eating anything, drinking only water for 24 hours. And the benefits all seem to make sense to me. That about how psychologically you go into your hunting brain, you know, your brain's a bit more active. And then when you think about it after that, you think about what happens to you when you eat and how you feel. You do kind of feel bogged down. And then maybe when you do attempt to fast, you monitor that, and you can, the proof's in the pudding. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a trick of the mind. But nowadays the science seems to suggest that it's good for you. No one seems to be saying it's really bad for you. And often people suggest that maybe it was the food industry that put it out that you have to eat 3 times a day, because that's what obviously makes you buy more of their food. Is that a minute?
Conspiracy, brother.
Conspiracy theories.
Brother.
But
I don't know about that.
I would add to what you said then with the lull in energy, and I know this is purely anecdotal evidence, and I'm just speaking for myself, but I used to have a hell of a dip in the afternoon. I used to have a heavy breakfast. For a time, I went by the rule: breakfast like a king, lunch like a lord, dinner like a pauper. So I had a massive breakfast, then a medium-sized lunch, and then a tiny dinner. And the lull after lunch was brutal, because that's when I'd usually start my classes when I was working in Spain, and I was just destroyed. Now I'm on this 8 hours of eating, so intermittent fasting, and I don't feel that anymore. I have a very, very steady flow of energy throughout the day, and I really don't have this this break in power in the
16
afternoon.
hours, the 16-hour intermittent fasting is not as hard as people think, actually, because very often they ask me, so you sleep and then you fast? Like the sleeping window, the sleeping period counts towards those 16 hours, so it's not that hard. Like in Italy, especially, I don't even have breakfast except for some coffee, and so it's in a way a natural intermittent fasting. Now there's some I think there's some controversy about whether you can also have milk in your coffee, if that breaks the fast or not, because I use soy milk, for example, in my coffee when I have coffee in the morning, and I love coffee. I need coffee. I can't start a day without it. So,
but Sal, the thing is with that, there's always somebody who's going to go more extreme, isn't there? Like I remember that I shared with you the Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she's a fascinating scientist who's an expert on many topics. One of them is fasting, and she said, no, even coffee counts as breaking your fast. And I say, whoa, I need my coffee in the morning. And then some people say, oh, you can have coffee but no milk. So we say, look, a splash of milk, it's not really starting your digestive system off, is it? It might be, how can we say, triggering a few of the enzymes in the stomach, but it's not like having a full-blown breakfast. So, yeah, there's always
also, like with a lot of these things, all right, maybe you're not going to get the full effect because you've had a dash of milk in your coffee, but are you going to get a lot of benefit from it, from doing the bit that you can do? Yeah. It's fine, isn't it? Who cares, Just take it all make it all manageable.
Joshua, what are actually the known effects, the positive effects that you're supposed to have from fasting? Do you know them all?
Sharpness, is it? Mental sharpness? What I like, I don't know, Sal, I can't roll off a long list, but what I also like is how it resets your eating habits. If I personally are getting a bit of a sugar ride, so I kind of have to tighten up my diet now and then after a couple of months I'll be slipping, and by the end of it, I'm just eating whatever, and I have to say, right, I need to get into a good flow here where I have to be disciplined. And I won't necessarily do a fast, but it tends to be more of a no carb diet, or something like along these lines. That tends to straighten me out because that's something I can stick to. And then, we're getting on to more dieting now than we are fasting, but personally, the fast does the same thing where it resets your habits. If after a day of not eating, obviously it takes quite a lot of will, but only for that day. And then afterwards, you'll definitely find that you don't have the same impulses just to pick at things like you would do, in your usual habits.
Yeah. So, James, you basically, if I understand correctly, you mostly use intermittent fasting or fasting in general to activate your energy levels or to keep them high and not to fall into this dip. And Josh, you use it mostly for dietary reasons. Is this correct?
I would add to that, Sal. Sorry, yeah, I would say that's one of the benefits, but there are a few benefits for me. Number two, definitely, I've noticed a drop in my body fat. An increase in my testosterone, and I noticed that through my level of, how should we say, useful aggression, enthusiasm, joie de vivre, my animal instinct, shall we say. The metabolism shoots through the roof. It really does. And yeah, I'd echo what Den said as well. Eating habits, like you realize that the action of picking is just a bad habit, and habits happen in here. So once you start to see that you can break that, I no longer wander into the kitchen, because when I eat for 8 hours, I eat one meal. Mm-hmm. I don't need to pick, and then I eat again in the evening. Or I have a little milkshake or something, and then a lighter lunch, and then I'll eat again in the evening. And I'm never hungry, because you don't have time to get hungry in 8 hours.
Okay.
What is your typical 8 hours? What's the window? Between 11 and 7 or something like that?
Something like that, mate. Yeah, what I do is I have a look at my timetable for the day and say, for example, I've got a lesson until 5 and then I've got a lesson from 6:30 onwards. I say, okay, well, I can eat about 7 o'clock and then I go 8 hours back. Other days it will be, I can eat at 8 o'clock, 8 hours back, start at 12. Some days if I'm going out for dinner, and I say, okay, realistically, I'm not going to eat until about 9:30 because I'm with friends. I'm not going to condition them, and I'm not going to be an arse with the waiters, and the waitresses, and say, oh, sorry, you need to get my food because the 8 hours is over. So I just try and leave it as long as possible. Maybe start eating at 1 or 2 o'clock. But I've also learned to be a bit more flexible with it. So, the days when, you sit down, watch a film, and you fancy some popcorn, it doesn't matter if one day a week you have a little nibble. But as a general rule, it works really well.
A little nibble.
I
I would imagine that it's better to just mix it up and not do a set, between 11 and 7, because you're not giving the body something to expect then, which is for me the whole point of it, to reset the habits. If sometimes you start at 11 and then, like you say, you're going out to dinner with your friends and you're not going to eat till 10, so you're not going to start eating till 2 that day. Between those 3 hours, you're going to feel some want to eat, which you're pushing through. And for me, this is a lot of the benefits. Not a lot about discipline, I suppose, more than it is about all the other benefits. Sure. I suppose not more. It's part of it.
Our friend Wim Hof on in podcast number 4 or number 5. Wim Hof's big into fasting, amongst other things. He says, "We eat too much. Just fast for one day. Next day you can eat anything you want. It will taste delicious." And there's something in that. The food that you eat later on tastes so much better because you learn to appreciate it.
That's true.
You learn to appreciate what's lacking for a time, right? In anything.
I mean, for me, it's not so much about the food itself. And so I don't care that much about diets or, these things. What got me mostly into it is the supposed longevity effect. So
you and I are going to live forever.
So potentially you extend your lifespan, although there's more research that needs to be done apparently. And the other aspect is connected though to the food. It's not the food itself, but it's the act of renouncing to something, which is basically an act of self-control, isn't it? Like it makes you feel like you're controlling a part of your life and you have full control over it, because as we know, the world's a chaotic place and there's not many things we can control. But I think we thrive to control at least those things that we have some agency over. And I think fasting is one of those. It's like quitting smoking, not drinking. It just makes you feel good if you did something before and you made a habit out of it. And then from one day to another, you can decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm taking back control over my body. And so you feel like you're regaining power, right?
My body, my choice.
You're not a slave to your cravings, yeah.
Slave to your
cravings. It's what you become, isn't it? It is,
that's
though, isn't
it,
it?
man. No, that's beautiful. I like that.
That really strikes a chord. But the problem with that is, if you were going to try and influence someone to fast, it's a tough sell. But the feeling of the satisfaction you get when you don't give in to your craving, it's hard to sell that over the taste of eating the sweets that you're about to eat and you're resisting. It's a hard.
Sure.
I know exactly what you mean. As you were saying that really struck a chord with me. I thought, yeah, I feel exactly like that. It's like you feel really empowered, and it almost makes forward. If sometimes you have a little bit where you want to eat something and you have to push through it, and then once you get over that, say 10, 15 minutes after you've had a little battle with your mind about it, you get this really good feeling, and you almost can't wait for the next. You think, and I'm not going to eat anything bad tomorrow either, because I want to feel like this the next day. But it's hard to imagine that, isn't it? It's hard to explain that to anyone.
It turns into a positive momentum loop, right? Once you start that wheel spinning, it spins faster and faster. Before you know it, it's an unstoppable force. Do you mind, guys, if I shift onto a longer fasting?
Yeah, go. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So I had wanted to try something like this for a long time, and you know what life's like. Things get in the way. You got lots of other things to think about and occupy your mind, and there's never a right moment to do something difficult. That's true for anything. There's always an excuse or something that gets in the way. So the quarantine for me was a brilliant period in so many areas. And one of the areas was that I said, look, you're not going to do many exercises in this quarantine because everything's shut. And you're limited to 200 meters and you've already been picked up by the police. So you don't really want to go further. Why don't you try that week-long fast that you've been playing with for a couple of years? And so I started on the Sunday, and my last meal was Sunday night. So Monday until Wednesday, I only had water. I woke up on Wednesday and I felt groggy. Sorry, I'm lying. It was water and coffee. Water and coffee. I woke up on Wednesday and I felt like...
Dash of milk, James? Dash of milk?
No milk. No milk.
Okay.
On Monday, mate, I could barely get to the kitchen. Like I was daisy. I was spaced out. I was like, woof, because I'd seen what you saw, Den, the lemon, and I think he uses some sort of sugar. It's not honey. It's similar, maple syrup. He uses lemon and maple syrup, and that's his mixture. So I thought, all right, I'm going down the shop. I barely got to the shop, got some honey, and it was lemon and honey water in tea for the rest of the week. And once I got over that hump of day 3, and I learned that I needed to adapt a little to take on some sugar, some calories, because you do take on a few hundred calories, drinking this liquid. I felt unbelievably good on day 4 and 5, like sharp, mentally sharp. And the evolutionary science behind this is fascinating. So I'll be brief. The body is adapted. So after 3 or 4 days, we are super alert, because thousands and thousands of years ago, this is when we most needed to find something, when we were hunting, right? So we become super alert when we most need food. And of course, with all the technology around us, we're still just the animals that we were in many ways. And so the mental sharpness that I had was incredible. I woke up super early. My sleep was interrupted to down to 4 or 5 hours because the body was saying, wake up and hunt, you need to eat. And so I used this time I wrote an essay. I wrote a 4,000-word essay for my master's in 2 days. It was unreal. I sat down on Friday evening to write one paragraph for half an hour, and I was still punching away at the keyboard after 2 hours. Then on Saturday morning, I could have gone on. I felt fine. I felt good. But I said, it's been fun. I've learned a lot, but let's eat some salmon and eggs and celebrate. Of course, that week I didn't do any training. I did a bit of light core and like 15-minute runs, very, very light, but you have to leave that aside.
I think the man in the YouTube video does a little bit of training, doesn't he? He's an ultra runner.
That's right.
James, I had 2 questions while you were explaining. What was there a particular reason for the lemon and sugar?
Oh, yes, there was. It was about the acidity and the alkaline mixture?
Right.
I'm going to put a comment under this video when I find that out. There was a reason.
Good. And also, was it something like it was 600 calories or something like that?
That's what he reckoned he took in. Yeah, I wasn't counting. I was just when I felt like I needed a little boost, honey and lemon in some hot water, and we're away. And I made these huge mixtures in the morning, and I just ladle it out and drink it all day.
And you didn't, and for 3 days it was a full-on fast, just coffee.
With coffee, no milk.
Coffee, no milk for 3 days, and then is that what the guy on the YouTube video did?
No, the guy on YouTube did lemon and honey from the start, I believe, but he does 7 days or 10 days.
And you did 5.
Yeah, I was happy with that.
Yeah, that's in some respects harder. I almost think it's more if you were to tell someone, if you were again you're going to try and influence someone too fast, I think it'd be a tougher sell saying don't eat for 24 hours than what it would be to say drink this drink which is 600 calories for a week. I reckon more people would be inclined to do that. I might be wrong.
Let's try it out.
And how did you feel after a week of fasting? After you had your first meal, did you feel strange?
Strange in the sense that I felt full very easily because my stomach had shrunk. I'd lost a lot of weight. It was noticeable. Obviously, I put that back on in 3-4 days of eating normally again. That wasn't the objective. It wasn't to lose weight. The objective was to to play with this idea of discipline and mind control, mind over matter.
Right.
And also find out about the benefits that this guy was talking about, because he also said the same. You have a rough period after 3-4 days, and then you get these bright spotlights come on in your mind, and really the mental clarity is unreal. And you're not sleeping that much, but then you're awake and you're alive, so you're ready to hunt. Of course, then the day after I slept like a baby. I slept for like 10 hours. But no, I didn't feel too weird. I was eating smaller portions for a few weeks, that's for sure, though.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah, who's the guy on YouTube where can people find this?
Wait a minute, Sal. If you could just do a little filler, and I'll find it.
What I would recommend, last time I fasted was actually last Tuesday, and I stayed out for the night, so I wasn't going to have my regular breakfast, and I knew that was happening. And then it was a last-minute decision. I thought about the day I had, what I had to do that day, and it was a lighter day than some other days. And I just thought, wow, today actually it might be a good day just to fast. Why not give it a go? And I was drinking coffee with milk, and the guy at work brought out a pack of hobnobs, and it was very tempting. I had to resist that. But same thing. Once I pushed through, I felt good. And so if you're going to try it, if you're going to try a 24-hour only water, maybe coffee fast, then I'd recommend a day where you've got things to do, but not too heavy an amount of things. Because if you're not eating, you need to keep your mind distracted. So being at work was perfect, because obviously how things, when you're working, your mind just clicks in and rolls, and you do not think about other things. That's it. But that's what I'd recommend. So you want a day where you've got a good amount of things to do, which isn't too demanding on the body, rather than I've fasted before and I've sat around all day and it is grueling. It makes the task.
What were you thinking then? I'm hungry.
Oh, and when you did your fast, James, last time, do you remember it was in quarantine, and I didn't really fancy it because of the corona. I thought, I don't know, it's not a good time to be taking these sort of risks, But I thought I will give it. Yeah, I don't know why I came to this decision off the back of that math, but I thought I will do a 24-hour just normal fast, just no, and I didn't drink coffee either. And my God, it was horrendous. The lack of coffee, I was actually a bit embarrassed about how bad it took a toll on me. I need that coffee to click in. I couldn't read a whole. I'm trying to fill the days because I wasn't working either. This was during lockdown. I'm trying to fill the days by kind of reading articles on Facebook and whatever, and I couldn't even get through a whole one. So I figured next, and I spoke to you actually, James, and you said you were drinking coffee, and I thought, man, like I said right at the beginning, if you want to do it and get the benefits but not regret it, then and drink a coffee as long as you're. Even if it's a 12-hour fast to start with, you haven't got to do a 24-hour fast.
Take it easy at the beginning, man. Also, you could do a no water fast. People do all sorts. There's always somebody. If you go to Tenerife, then I'll go to
11 a reef.
Always. There's always somebody else. The guy on the TED Talk is called Phil Sanderson.
Okay.
Phil Sanderson, really good TED Talk, really interesting. Cool. I think that's time up, isn't it, Sal? Did you wave us?
Yes, time's up.
All right. But yeah, give it a go.
Absolutely.
Hashtag time's up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the Three-Headed Hydra with Joshua, James, and now Sal. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the 3 of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.